The last sunset the city ever saw bled orange across shattered glass and empty roads. Smoke curled into the sky from 100 fires still smoldering weeks after the fall. In the heart of it all stood a grocery store, half-looted, its sign hanging by one chain, swaying in the stale wind. Beneath it, 30 survivors took their final vote: hide and hope, or fight back. No one truly remembered who called the meeting. It didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that they were still here. Alive. 30 souls who had lost everything but refused to lose each other. Mara leaned against a broken freezer, arms crossed, eyes scanning the others with sharp focus. At 32, she had once been a paramedic, now she was something harder. "We can't keep running," she said calmly. "There's no more later. Either we stay, we fortify, and we fight, or we'll fade like the rest." Her words echoed in the silence. Beside her, Jackson shifted nervously. Former high school teacher, now the group's reluctant strategist. "It's a suicide mission," he muttered. "We have no ammo. No med supplies. Just cans of soup and luck that's wearing thin." "No," Mara corrected. "We have 30 people. And that's more than most." From the back, a wiry teen with an old laptop strapped to his chest raised his voice. "I've been picking up signals. Weak ones. Repeating. Someone's out there." His name was Leo, and while most of the group saw a kid, Mara saw potential. He jury-rigged solar panels and found a way to boost emergency frequencies with scavenged electronics. The group murmured. "What kind of signal?" asked Eleanor, a former librarian turned silent observer. She rarely spoke unless it mattered. "Coordinates," Leo said, tapping the laptop. "They keep repeating a location, and a word, refuge. It's north. Deep into the city." No one wanted to go north. That was where the dead were thickest. But it was also where the hospitals and radio towers used to be, where answers might still hide. "It could be a trap," muttered Darnell, a strong-armed mechanic who trusted no one and nothing anymore. "Or," Mara countered, "it's a lifeline." The vote was cast. 23 said yes. 7 said no, choosing instead to remain behind and take their chances alone. At dawn, the chosen 30 packed what little they had: water, flashlights, homemade weapons. No guns, those had long run dry. Just sharpened tools, bats, crowbars, and one crossbow that had seen better days. Every step forward meant danger, but staying put was no longer survival, it was surrender. As they moved into the streets, shadows seemed to watch from broken windows. The dead were no longer fast, but they were patient. Lurking. Listening. And sometimes, learning. Their first challenge came just 3 blocks in. An overturned bus blocked the road. Behind it, a snare of vehicles welded together by desperate civilians who once thought barricades would stop the apocalypse. The way through was a narrow crawlspace littered with bones and shredded clothes. Mara signaled halt. "We send a scout," she whispered. "I'll go," said Anika, a soft-spoken woman with a past in urban exploration. She slipped through the shadows like mist, her feet making no sound. Every second stretched long until finally her hand waved from the other side. "Clear, for now." One by one they moved, silent and swift, trusting the cover of fog that rolled in thick and low. They reached the edge of what had once been Central Avenue, a strip now lost beneath silence and decay. And that's when they saw it. Scrawled in red on a highway sign, "Not safe. Turn back." Leo frowned. "This wasn't here yesterday." "Someone doesn't want us going north," Jackson muttered. "Which means someone is up there," Mara replied. Night crept in fast, and they made camp inside a wrecked pharmacy, candles flickering behind covered windows. The group ate quietly. No music. No firelight. Just the sound of chewing, breathing, and the distant, unnatural groans that echoed through the hollow city. Later, Mara stood watch on the roof, the crossbow in her lap. Below, the others slept, curled in corners, wrapped in blankets, trying to forget the world outside. She saw movement in the distance, not fast, not aggressive. Just, watching. She raised her scope. A figure. Standing still. Far too still. But it wasn't a zombie. It wore a red scarf. It raised an arm. Then turned and disappeared into the fog. Someone alive. She radioed Leo. Get me that signal again. We might not be alone out here. As the candlelight below dimmed to shadows, 30 survivors huddled closer than ever. The end was near, but so were they. And they were not done fighting. The night had been restless. Sleep came in short bursts, haunted by sounds too faint to trust. Sometimes it was a distant scream, sometimes a soft dragging sound just beyond the pharmacy's doors. But no one was taken. No one turned. That counted as a victory. At dawn, a thin fog still hugged the streets as Mara gathered the group for a quiet breakfast, just crackers and water. The red-scarfed figure she had seen on the rooftop hours earlier stayed with her. That movement, the raised arm, it had been deliberate. A signal. But was it a warning, or a trap? Leo was already awake, tinkering with his laptop, eyes puffy from too little sleep. The signal's changed, he said, voice low. Same frequency, but now it's pulsing. Like someone's trying to draw attention. Jackson looked up from his map, his tone skeptical. Could be bait. Could be a guide, Leo countered. It's leading us farther north, still in the direction of the last radio tower. Someone wants us to follow. Mara didn't hesitate. Then we follow. But we stay smart. No splitting up. No shortcuts. They moved out, 30 people walking through ruins that felt heavier with every step. Cars sat in crumpled silence, windows cracked like spiderwebs. Stray bones littered sidewalks. The dead weren't in sight, but that didn't mean they weren't there. Anika stayed near the front with Mara, her eyes always scanning. This fog's unnatural, she whispered. It moves, wrong. Mara nodded. I've felt it too. Like it's watching us. Hours passed before they found the next sign. It wasn't a voice. It wasn't a person. It was a symbol, spray-painted in red across a bus stop wall, a triangle with a circle inside it. Leo stopped. I've seen this before, in old resistance broadcasts. It meant a rally point. A safe house. Darnell stepped forward, his grip on his pipe wrench tightening. Or it means someone wants us cornered. They followed it anyway. The path led them into an old maintenance tunnel entrance. The air was damp, metallic. They lit flashlights, beams bouncing off the rusted rails and walls as they descended into the dark. Silence clung to them like a second skin. Halfway through the tunnel, Eleanor spoke for the first time in hours. We're being followed. Heads turned. How do you know? Jackson asked. I counted our steps. I hear a 31st. Mara halted them all with a hand. She turned off her flashlight. One by one, the others did the same. Darkness swallowed everything. Then, the sound. One soft footstep. Then another. Then silence again. Mara spoke calmly. Whoever you are, if you're alive, step into the light. We don't mean harm. No response. She switched on her light again, just in time to catch the flick of movement retreating into the shadows. Anika chased after it. Wait. She ran to the curve in the tunnel but stopped short. The figure was gone. But in its place, a small paper was taped to the wall. A hand-drawn map. And beneath it, written in red, "Stop trusting your ERS." What does that mean? Whispered Leo, breath catching. Mara didn't answer right away. She stared at the note, jaw clenched. It means we've been assuming too much. They continued on. Eventually, the tunnel emerged into what had once been a subway station, now half collapsed, lit faintly by sunlight leaking through broken grates above. On the walls, more triangle circle symbols. But something was wrong. The smell. It hit them before anything else. Not rot, but something chemical. Sharp. Manufactured. Mara raised her hand. Masks. Now. They pulled up scarves, filters, whatever they had. Then, Leo found it. A plastic canister tucked behind a bench. Empty. Gas? He asked. Jackson paled. Tear gas. Or worse. Someone wanted this place emptied fast, Mara muttered. Then came the sound, boots. Not dragging feet. Not zombies. Boots. Real, timed footsteps approaching from the far corridor. Mara motioned the group into cover. Eyes up. Quiet. The sound grew closer. Then stopped. A voice called out. Are you the 30? It was a man's voice. Steady. Calm. Measured. Mara stepped out slowly, crossbow lowered. Who are you? He was older, maybe 50, dressed in a makeshift uniform stitched from scavenged gear. A red scarf hung loosely around his neck. My name's Ellis. I was told to wait here in case the signal reached anyone. You sent the signal? Leo asked. Ellis nodded. The tower was rebuilt by a group calling themselves the Ark Survivors. Scientists. Civilians. Fighters. They're building something north of the river. Something permanent. Then why the warnings? Mara asked. Why tell people to turn back? Ellis looked down. Because the city between here and the river is a kill zone. Ark made enemies. Not all the dead stay dumb. Some adapt. Some listen. A hush fell. Anika whispered, the noise we heard, the footstep that wasn't ours. They're not just walkers anymore, Ellis said grimly. They're watchers. And if they know you're coming, they'll make sure you never get there. Mara looked back at her people. 30 strong. Tired. Hungry. But still standing. We'll take our chances, she said. Lead the way. Ellis gave one nod, then turned into the tunnel ahead. The fight had just begun, and they were marching straight into its heart. The tunnel narrowed, the ceiling dipping so low that even Leo had to duck. Ellis moved with familiarity, his red scarf the only color in the dim world of flickering flashlights and echoing footsteps. Behind him, 30 survivors followed, tight formation, silent as possible. The Ark is about 3 miles north from here, Ellis said over his shoulder. But getting there won't be simple. This zone, this stretch of the city, was lost in the second wave. Hundreds turned. Some never left. Is that what happened to your team? Mara asked, keeping pace beside him. Ellis hesitated. Some were taken. Others, changed. Changed? Darnell asked, frowning. They stopped acting like biters, Ellis said. Started setting traps. Using lures. I saw one ring a bell to draw others in, both dead and alive. Leo shook his head. That shouldn't be possible. They don't have that kind of coordination. Ellis didn't answer. They emerged into a derelict maintenance yard full of rusted equipment and twisted fences. It might have once been a depot for the city's underground trains, but now it was little more than a rust-colored graveyard. The silence here wasn't natural, it pressed in, heavy, like something unseen waited just beyond the walls. Anika whispered, "This feels wrong." That's when the scream came. High-pitched. Desperate. Human. It echoed from somewhere above them, on the far side of the yard. Could be a trap, Jackson said immediately. Or someone needs help, Eleanor said. The scream came again, then abruptly cut off. Mara signaled. Stay here. I'm going with Ellis and Anika to check it out. Darnell stepped forward. I'll cover your 6. Together, the 4 crept around the edge of the yard, scaling a partially collapsed staircase that led to a second-level walkway. They found what they were looking for within moments. A man. Wearing torn clothing, leg pinned under debris, face pale. He looked up, eyes full of terror. Help, please. Anika moved first, but Mara grabbed her wrist. Wait. The man's eyes darted behind them. Mara spun, just in time to see a figure lurch from the shadows. Not slow. Not groaning. Fast. Precise. With a jagged blade in its hand. She fired the crossbow instinctively, bolt straight through the figure's neck. It collapsed without a sound. Ellis cursed. It's one of them. They don't just bite anymore. Below, in the yard, something stirred. Then another scream, but this time, from one of their own. Leo. They raced back down. The rest of the group had spread out in confusion. One of the supply carts was overturned. Leo was kneeling beside a fallen figure, Nina, the youngest among them. A long, narrow wound bled across her side. Not a bite. A stab. I tried to stop them, Leo gasped. It wasn't a walker. It was, a person. Or something that used to be one. Mara scanned the yard, then shouted, regroup. Back to the tunnel wall. Move. As they repositioned, shadows moved between the train cars. Fast. Silent. Watching. But not attacking. They're testing us, Ellis growled. Trying to see how we react. Nina moaned as Darnell wrapped her wound with gauze. She needs rest, he said. Can't walk like this. We have no choice, Mara said. If we stay here, they'll swarm us. Eleanor, eyes fixed on the shadows, whispered, we're not fighting the dead anymore. We're fighting something new. Mara met her gaze. Then we learn. Fast. Ellis led them through a narrow gate behind the yard. On the other side was a narrow corridor of crumbling buildings, rooftops half-collapsed and windows sealed with planks. The ground was littered with bones and torn clothing. But no blood. Just silence. This is the edge of what we call the listening zone, Ellis said. Anything too loud here draws them fast. So we stay quiet, Jackson muttered. And fast. They moved carefully, feet muffled by cloth-wrapped boots and layers of debris. Each intersection felt like a coin flip, one wrong step, and they'd be surrounded. It wasn't until they reached an alleyway blocked by a wire fence that they realized the trap had already closed. On the far rooftop, 5 figures stood. They didn't move like survivors. They didn't groan like zombies. They just stared. Then, one by one, they raised long, makeshift weapons, pikes, spears, clubs wrapped in wire. And leapt. Not onto the group. Onto the building opposite, cutting off the path ahead. They're hurting us, Mara said in disbelief. Leo clutched his radio. The signal, it's changed again. What now? Darnell asked. Leo held it up. The message was still pulsing, but faster. Urgent. It now read. Run. They know you're coming. Behind them, the low growl of dozens of dragging feet began. Mara didn't wait. Go, she shouted. Through the fence. They broke through as the first of the dead, real ones this time, flooded the alley from behind. Screaming. Hissing. Some carried tools. Some just used their hands. But all of them moved with unnatural purpose. They weren't just chasing. They were hunting. Boots pounded the ground as 30 survivors crashed through the wire fence, their breath ragged and panicked. Behind them, the sound of pursuit was relentless, shuffling feet and sharp metal scraping against walls. The undead weren't just following, they were driving the group forward. Mara took the lead, dodging through a collapsed stairwell and into a wide-open corridor that once served as the back entrance to a hospital. The wind shifted, and with it came a wave of heat. Flames. The building ahead was partially burning, fire licking out of broken windows and curling upward into the smoke-soaked sky. They were being driven into a trap. This whole block set to burn, Ellis growled, coughing. Somebody planned this route. Jackson looked behind. They're still coming. Leo's voice cracked. We can't go forward, and we can't go back. Mara looked to the side. A rusted storm drain, barely wide enough for one person, was pried open. There. One at a time. Underground. I'm not crawling into some hole, Darnell started, but Mara's voice cut through the panic. Move. Or stay and burn. One by one, they ducked into the tunnel. The heat behind them rose, and ash began to fall like gray snow. Darnell shoved Leo through, then dropped down after him. Mara went last, the whoosh of collapsing walls just behind her heels. The storm drain gave way to a larger chamber beneath the city, a maintenance tunnel, damp and thick with the smell of rust and mildew. The light from above disappeared as the grate sealed them in darkness. Anika flicked on a headlamp. Everyone down. 29, Mara said, counting quickly. Wait. Where's? A shout echoed above, Eleanor. Help. Before anyone could react, Ellis launched back up the ladder. Mara followed without hesitation. Through the smoke and haze, Eleanor was barely visible, pinned beneath a fallen metal beam. Ellis pulled. Mara lifted. Together, they dragged her free just as another fireball roared down the hallway. They didn't climb back down. They jumped. The three of them hit the tunnel floor hard. Dust rose. Eleanor groaned, her leg twisted at an awkward angle. She's hurt bad, Darnell said, dropping to check her. Maybe fractured. Could be worse. Mara wiped sweat from her eyes. We carry her. But for how long? Jackson asked, shaking his head. This isn't sustainable. We don't leave our own, Mara snapped. Ellis pointed down the tunnel. There's an old subway line up ahead. It'll take us west, under the fire line. Past that, we're clear for about half a mile. They moved slowly. The tunnel was narrow, but the farther they went, the more signs of life they saw, old supply crates, blankets, and chalk markings on the wall. It hadn't just been used by survivors, it had been organized. Anika stopped and ran her hand across the wall. What is it? Leo asked. Markings. Look. Scrawled in white chalk was a symbol they recognized, triangle with a circle. Underneath, numbers. 4 turns left. 1 turn right. Safe room, Anika read aloud. A path, Mara said. Left by someone from the Ark? Or someone who didn't want to get eaten, Darnell muttered. They followed the instructions, moving through the tunnels, guided by chalk, instinct, and desperation. On the third left, they found something that stopped them cold. A gate. Steel. Reinforced. And behind it, another survivor. She looked no older than 20, face smeared with dirt and soot, eyes wide with fear. She held a sharpened broom handle in her hands. Who are you? She asked, voice shaking. Friends, Mara said quickly. We're heading north. To the Ark. The girl lowered her weapon but didn't open the gate. You can't go that way. Not anymore. Why? Ellis stepped forward. What happened? They breached the underground. They started using the tunnels. Not just walking. Waiting. Luring people with recorded voices. Even children's cries. Leo's face went pale. We heard one earlier. It didn't make sense. The girl nodded. They record screams and replay them on loop. Anyone who goes in after, disappears. But there's another way, she added. Through the underbridge. But it's flooded. You'd have to climb over pipework and pray your light doesn't die. Mara looked back at her group. We'll take the risk. The girl hesitated, then pressed a button. The gate clanked open. My name's Riley, she said. I'll guide you through. Ellis raised an eyebrow. Why help us? Because my brother made it to the Ark. He said they're building something real. Something safe. If you're heading there, I want in. They didn't argue. They followed Riley deeper into the tunnels, passing areas where the water reached their knees. Pipes groaned overhead. Somewhere in the distance, a speaker crackled, then a recorded voice echoed through the dark. Please, someone help, please don't leave me. It was a little girl's voice. Soft. Innocent. Repeating. Leo stopped cold. It's the same voice from before. Jackson gritted his teeth. Keep moving. Don't listen. Riley turned her head. They're close. If we slow down now, we'll never reach the bridge. Behind them, somewhere in the darkness, something metallic scraped against the concrete. Not random. Rhythmic. Measured. Hunting. The water grew colder as they advanced, soaking pants and boots, seeping into the skin like tiny needles. The only light came from a handful of flashlights and Riley's flickering headlamp. Above them, thick pipes arched like ribs inside a giant creature's skeleton. The tunnel moaned as if it breathed. Behind them, that scraping sound continued. Always just far enough away to be unnerving. Mara led the way now, Eleanor supported between her and Darnell. Riley stayed close, constantly glancing over her shoulder. We're almost there, she whispered. The underbridge is just beyond the maintenance room. Leo was breathing hard, clutching the radio tight in one hand and his flashlight in the other. I keep thinking we're being watched, he murmured. You are, Jackson replied without looking back. That's what they do now. No one argued. They all felt it, the weight of unseen eyes pressing in. They reached a rusted metal door marked Subsector B4. It groaned as Riley pried it open. The room inside had once been used for supply storage. Shelves lined the walls, most empty or toppled. At the far end, a ladder led upward toward what looked like a thick steel trapdoor. That goes to the bridge, Riley said. We climb it, cross the maintenance beams, and exit 2 blocks from the Ark's outer patrol range. Wait, Anika whispered. Where's Leo? Everyone froze. He'd been with them moments ago. Mara's voice dropped to a sharp whisper. He was right behind Jackson. They turned back. No light. No footsteps. Just darkness and the soft echo of dripping water. Then, the radio crackled. Leo's voice. Guys? Something's not right. The message cut out. Then, static. Then, his voice again. But wrong. Repeating the same sentence. Guys? Something's not right. Over and over. Leo's real voice was gone. Now, only an echo. A loop. Riley stepped back, horrified. They took his voice. No, Darnell growled, clenching his fists. We're not leaving him. Mara stared into the dark tunnel. The repetition grew louder. "It's bait," she said, her heart cracking as she spoke. Leo knew the risks. The others hesitated, but Mara turned and began climbing the ladder. "We move now. Or none of us make it." They climbed one by one. At the top, the trapdoor opened with a burst of cold air. It led out onto a narrow service bridge suspended beneath an abandoned train line. Below, a murky canal stretched into shadow. Broken rails and snapped beams jutted like jagged teeth. "We cross slow," Mara said, her voice hard. "No loud talking. Stay single file." The bridge creaked with every step. They moved in a line, Mara first, then Riley, Jackson, Anika, and the others. Darnell and Eleanor followed in the middle. Ellis stayed at the rear, eyes constantly sweeping the darkness behind them. Halfway across, the wind picked up, and with it came a smell. Burnt flesh. Rot. Metal. And a sound, a voice. Leo's. No, no, no. But it wasn't coming from the tunnel. It was coming from above. Mara looked up just as a figure leapt from the train rail above and crashed onto the bridge beside her. It wasn't Leo. It wore his clothes, mimicked his voice, moved like him. But its eyes were lifeless. Glassy. A marionette operated by something inhuman. It opened its mouth, and Leo's scream came out. Anika fired first, her pistol cracking. The shot took the thing in the shoulder, and it stumbled, then launched at her with terrifying speed. Riley swung a crowbar, catching it in the head and sending it over the edge. It didn't scream as it fell. It only kept repeating Leo's last words as it splashed into the canal below. "Keep moving," Mara shouted. They rushed forward, the bridge groaning louder now. More figures darted across the rails above, silhouettes moving like spiders across the steel. "They're trying to trap us again," Ellis barked. One of the beams ahead cracked, dropped partially, leaving only a narrow pipe to cross. Mara didn't stop. She climbed the beam, then crawled across the pipe on all fours, the canal yawning beneath her. One by one, the others followed. When Darnell came with Eleanor on his back, the pipe shook violently. A figure dropped in behind them, a mockery of Leo, or maybe someone else they'd lost. Darnell didn't hesitate. He kicked backward, catching the thing in the face. It fell, taking a chunk of the pipe with it. The rest scrambled to safety just before the gap collapsed completely. Breathless, they made it to the other side. The hatch on the far wall opened easily, revealing a small tunnel that sloped upward, and light. Natural light. Ellis looked back one last time before shutting the hatch. "They know we're close." Riley turned to Mara, voice trembling. "The Ark is just ahead. Maybe a half-mile." "But?" Mara asked. "But this is the part they never let anyone talk about," Riley said quietly. Anika stepped forward. "What part?" Riley stared at her. "They call it the dead filter. Not everyone makes it through." Sunlight spilled into the tunnel, faint, distant, and almost unreal after so many hours in the dark. The survivors emerged one by one, blinking hard as their eyes adjusted to the light. The world outside was no less broken than the tunnels they'd crawled through, but here, at least, the wind was real. The sky, though clouded, stretched overhead like a long-forgotten promise. Before them lay a narrow no-man's land, charred buildings, rusted vehicles, and watchtowers in the far distance. And at the center of it all, framed by bent fencing and barricades, stood a gleaming metal wall, tall, curved, and pulsing with blue light. The outer perimeter of the Ark. "We made it," Anika whispered. But Riley didn't move. "Not yet," she said, voice tight. "That's just the shell. We're in the filter now." "What's that supposed to mean?" Darnell asked, still cradling Eleanor's injured leg. Riley stepped forward and pointed to a barely visible structure half buried in the wreckage, a squat bunker with a single camera above a sealed door. They call it the dead filter. You want in? You go through that. Ellis's jaw clenched. And what happens in there? No one knows, Riley said. Some go in, and come back out. Some don't. Some are told they're not clean. Others just vanish. Mara scanned the area. Do we have another way around? There is no way around, Riley answered. It's the only entrance for unauthorized civilians. Anyone not escorted in by ARC patrol has to pass the filter. Jackson shook his head. So after all we've survived, we're still not safe? A voice crackled through the speaker above the door. Step forward one at a time. Weapons lowered. Submit to scan. Mara stepped forward. We're 30. One is injured. 30? The voice paused. Records show 29 active tags. Everyone turned to Leo's backpack, still slung over Mara's shoulder. His tag was still broadcasting. Mara dropped the bag silently. Proceed. Riley went first. The door slid open with a hydraulic hiss, then sealed behind her. A moment passed. Then another. Just when they started to worry, the door opened again. She emerged, unharmed. I'm cleared. One by one, they entered. Anika. Cleared. Jackson. Cleared. Darnell, with Eleanor on his back. Cleared. Ellis. Cleared. Then Mara. The door sealed. Inside was sterile and cold, walls of white, lights that hummed too loud, a faint chemical smell. She stood alone in a glass chamber as a mechanical voice began scanning. Analyzing vitals. Infectious exposure, minimal. Recent trauma, severe. Cognitive response, stable. Heart rate, elevated. Mara held her breath. Emotional strain exceeds threshold. Recommend memory evaluation. What? She said aloud. A second voice, smoother and artificial, replied, We've detected significant leadership fatigue. You've made irrational choices under stress. You left a team member behind. Her jaw tightened. Leo sacrificed himself. We determine that. Not you. A blinding light pulsed in her eyes. She stumbled backward, but then, the door opened. She was out. Free. Clear, the voice said flatly. Mara didn't stop to argue. She joined the others beyond the checkpoint. One by one, more emerged until only 3 remained inside. Then 2. Then. Nothing. The camera above the entrance blinked red. Anika stepped forward. Wait, where's Devon? Riley shook her head slowly. He was right behind me. They waited. 5 minutes. 10. He never came out. Then the voice returned. Filtering complete. Proceed to perimeter gate. What happened to Devon? Mara demanded. Entry denied. Why? He failed psychological compliance. Jackson clenched his fists. You killed him, didn't you? We don't kill, the voice replied. We protect. They had no choice but to move forward. The perimeter gate opened silently. Through it lay a narrow bridge, leading directly into the heart of the Ark. The structure was massive, white towers piercing the sky, solar shields absorbing sunlight, drones patrolling silently overhead. Inside, it was calm. Too calm. Men and women in matching uniforms guided them into a waiting area. A medic arrived immediately for Eleanor. Another gave them blankets, rations, water. It felt good. Too good. Mara sat, sipping water from a silver pouch. Why do I feel like we walked into another cage? Ellis nodded. Because you're not wrong. From across the room, a woman in a black coat approached. Her hair was pulled back tight, and a silver badge glinted at her chest. Welcome to the Ark, she said with a sharp smile. My name is Overseer Voss. We've been watching your journey for some time. What do you mean, watching? Riley asked. Voss gestured to the wall, where dozens of monitors showed tunnels, rooftops, bridge cams. You were part of the test. A live field evaluation. Most don't make it this far. Mara stood. So it was all a setup? No, Voss said. It was survival. We need fighters. Leaders. Survivors. You proved yourselves. And now, we need you for the next phase. Which is? Darnell asked quietly. Voss leaned in. Taking back what the dead stole. The briefing room inside the Ark was unlike anything the survivors had seen. Walls of smooth white metal curved around them, and a large holotable projected a 3D map of the entire surrounding region, glowing in cold blue tones. Dots flickered on various locations, green for patrols, red for the infected, and one massive, pulsing red zone marked only as Delta Sector. Overseer Voss stood at the center, hands behind her back. Everything you've experienced was part of Phase 1, an intelligence operation designed to locate people capable of surviving under extreme stress and making decisions with no guidance. Out of hundreds, only 30 of you remain. Anika frowned. So you sent people into death traps to find leaders? Voss's expression didn't shift. We offered opportunity. The world has changed. We don't need followers. We need executioners. Architects. People willing to act when others hesitate. Mara crossed her arms. What's Delta Sector? Voss turned to the projection. A zone so infested that not even drones can map it anymore. It's where the outbreak mutated, evolved. We believe the dead there have developed limited coordination, memory retention, even mimicry. You've already seen it, creatures wearing human faces, using recorded voices to lure you. Ellis nodded grimly. Leo. Voss gave a short nod of acknowledgement. Yes. The infected version of your teammate was the result of exposure to Delta gas, something we barely understand. She clicked a remote. The hologram zoomed in on a partially buried military facility inside Delta. This is Site RZ-9. Before the fall, it was a bioweapons lab. We believe the strain responsible for the mutation was developed, and accidentally released, from there. We've lost 5 teams trying to reach it. And now you want us to go in? Jackson asked, his voice low and tense. Correct. Darnell took a step forward. We're exhausted. Injured. Some of us are barely holding on. You're still alive, Voss said coolly. That makes you more valuable than any of my soldiers. Silence settled over the room. The offer, or order, was clear. Mara broke the stillness. What happens if we refuse? Voss didn't blink. Then you're free to live inside the Ark's civilian sector. Sheltered. Monitored. Contributing through controlled labor. Your clearance will be downgraded, and you will never leave again. The threat was wrapped in polite language, but it was still a threat. Riley looked at Mara. We didn't come all this way to be caged again. Anika nodded. I say we vote. But Mara already knew the answer. She saw it in their eyes. Even the injured among them weren't ready to give up. They hadn't survived tunnels, monsters, and betrayals just to hide behind walls while someone else finished the fight. We're in, she said. Voss finally smiled. Good. You leave at dawn. The next morning, the survivors stood suited in new gear, armored jackets, filtered breathing masks, thermal vision helmets. They looked like soldiers now, not scavengers. Before them stood an armored personnel carrier flanked by 2 silent drones. The words Operation Deadlight were printed on the screen inside the vehicle. Mara took a seat beside Ellis and Riley. Jackson manned the drone control, and Anika loaded explosives into a secured case. They moved with the grim focus of people who had lost too much to hesitate anymore. As the vehicle rolled through the north gate, the arc began to shrink behind them. Then Delta Sector swallowed everything. Deadlight's path was unlike any road they'd taken. Trees grew sideways, twisted by some unknown chemical exposure. The sky was darker here, with ash falling in slow, silent spirals. Faint cries echoed through the canyons, some human, some distinctly not. The first threat came fast. A shape darted across the road, too fast, too coordinated. Movement! Riley shouted. The vehicle skidded to a halt. Mara jumped out with her weapon raised. The figure reappeared, pale skin, stitched lips, and glowing eyes. It moved like a predator but jerked like a puppet. Ellis fired. The thing twisted but didn't fall. 2 more emerged. Anika tossed a flash charge. The explosion knocked the creatures off their feet, long enough for the team to neutralize them. But the worst part wasn't their strength. It was what one of them whispered before dying. Not alone. Riley's blood ran cold. They talk now? Mara helped her up. No. They repeat. Like crows. They're learning, Ellis muttered. They reached the outer fence of Site RZ-9 by dusk. The facility was cracked open, like something inside had forced its way out. Huge claw marks lined the walls, and doors meant to keep intruders out now hung bent and melted. The team moved carefully inside. Lights flickered. Alarms blinked on and off. A foul stench hung in the air, chemical rot. Radiation's within tolerable range, Jackson said, checking a handheld meter. But the heat signatures, they're moving. They found a control room with a half-dead generator and rows of monitors. On one screen, something moved across the lower halls. Tall. Fast. Target acquired, Mara said. We finished this, we shut down whatever made that gas. For Leo. For Devon. For all of them. But before they could make a plan, the lights went black. And from the far end of the corridor, a deep, inhuman voice rasped over the speakers. You are late. You are late. The voice echoed from every direction, metallic, twisted, as though layered with dozens of human tones distorted into one. The survivors froze in the ruined control room. The flickering monitors revealed glimpses of something moving through the lower corridors. Too large. Too fast. Too intelligent. Riley gripped her rifle tighter. That wasn't a recording. No, Mara said, eyes fixed on the security feed. It knows we're here. Ellis pointed to the monitor. There. Sub-level 4. It's guarding the core. Anika's voice was low. Then that's where we go. Darnell, cradling a medkit, checked Eleanor's condition once more before nodding. We've got one chance. The team descended a twisted stairwell that creaked beneath their weight. Along the walls, old biosafety warnings were scrawled over with spray paint, blood, and strange symbols, circles drawn inside broken skulls. Words like, he sees now, and, we obey, etched into rusted panels. The stench was worse here. Like burning meat and mold. Sub-level 4 was sealed by a reinforced blast door. Mara stepped forward, pried open the side panel, and began hotwiring it. Sparks flew. Then silence fell. Too much silence. No buzzing lights. No echoing steps. Until a low, wet breath. They turned. A shadow detached itself from the hallway. Tall. Human-shaped, but wrong. Its spine twisted as it moved. Patches of skin stretched across armor. A mask of human teeth formed a mocking grin on its face. "You're late," it rasped again, this time from its own mouth. Anika didn't wait. She threw a flash charge and fired. Jackson backed her up, unloading a full clip into the thing's chest. It stumbled. Twitched. Laughed. Then lunged. Ellis tackled it midair. The creature slammed him against the wall, denting the metal. Riley fired into its back. Darnell dragged Ellis away while Mara finished bypassing the lock. "Go," she yelled. The door hissed open. One by one, they dove through, Jackson throwing a grenade behind him. The blast knocked the thing back just long enough to seal the door. Inside was the heart of the nightmare. The core room pulsed with green light. Vats lined the walls, each containing something once human, now mutated. Limbs twitched against glass. Tubes fed black liquid into them. "This is where it started," Mara said. "They were building something. And it got out." A central console glowed, untouched for years. Riley tapped the screen, lines of code scrolled across. Jackson studied it. "I can overload the reactors. Torch the lab. But we'll have 5 minutes, maybe less, before this whole place turns into a crater." "And what about that thing out there?" Anika asked. Mara turned to her. "We hold it off. Until the end." No one argued. They'd made it too far to run now. The countdown began, 5 o'clock. The team took positions in the corridor outside the core. Barricades were built from broken furniture and lab equipment. Ammo was distributed. Darnell passed out flares and flash bombs. Mara stood at the front, gun ready. Ellis beside her, bruised but breathing. Riley closed her eyes for a second. Whispered, "For Leo." Then the door exploded inward. The creature charged. This time, it didn't taunt, it roared. A sound so raw and deep it shook the walls. Behind it came others, mutants, not quite like the dead, not fully alive. Failed copies of what the lab had tried to make. The fight was chaos. Gunfire lit the dark like lightning. Flares burned. Explosives rattled the foundation. Jackson was wounded early, dragged back by Ellis. Anika dual-wielded pistols, cutting down creatures with pinpoint shots. Darnell manned the barricade, shielding Eleanor and hurling makeshift grenades. Mara faced the main creature alone. Its claws tore through metal, scraping her shoulder. She slashed with a combat blade, jammed a flare into its jaw. It screamed, blinded, and stumbled back. 1:15. Alarms wailed. The whole base trembled. Pipes burst. Steam hissed. Riley grabbed Mara's arm. "We have to go." But Mara looked back. The creature wasn't dead. And it was still coming. "I'll hold it," she said. "No." Ellis growled. "We stick together." Mara smiled, sad, tired. "Not this time." She ran straight into the creature with a detonator in her hand. Tackled it through the broken wall into the vat room. The scream was inhuman, deafening. Riley turned away as the final doors sealed. 0:10. The survivors ran. Up collapsing staircases. Through burning hallways. Up, up, up. The blast hit like a god's hammer. When they awoke, they were in a scorched crater. Wind howled. Ash fell. But the sky was clear. Riley was the first to rise. Then Anika. Then Darnell, supporting Eleanor. Ellis crawled out, dragging Jackson with him. Only 5 remained. They stood on the edge of what had once been Site RZ-9. Mara was gone. The creature, gone. The nightmare, ended. Weeks later, they returned to the Ark. They were met not by Voss, but by silence. Inside the once polished halls, things had changed. People whispered now. Guards lowered their eyes. The story had spread. Not about failure. But about 30 who dared to fight when the end was near. And of the few who made it back. Final entry, Ark Records, Mission Deadlight. Status, Mission Success. Subjects returned, 5. Containment breach, eliminated. Threat level, reduced. Legacy, secured. That completes your full 8-part story.